Because salt marshes are on the coast, humans are attracted to its natural beauty and resources. As of 2002, over half the world's population lived within 60 kilometers of the coastal shoreline, with that number growing as the global population rises, making coastlines especially susceptible to human activity that puts pressure on the surrounding environments. Reclamation for agriculture, urban development, highway construction, dredging, and recreation are among the leading causes for salt marsh destruction. For example, in New Zealand, the cordgrass angelica was introduced from England into the Manawatu River mouth in 1913 to try to reclaim the salt marsh for farming. The shift from tidal lands to pasture lands extended into other estuaries around New Zealand, and many native plants struggled to survive as the invasive species outcompeted them. The animals that needed the protection of the waterways were put at risk, and the pastureland became highly susceptible to flooding. Efforts to remove the non-native angelica are now taking place, but much of the area's biodiversity was lost in the transition. Another example of human impact on salt marshes occurred in the early 20th century along the northeastern coast of the United States. It was believed that draining salt marshes would help reduce the local mosquito populations, so residents and even local state agencies dug straight-line ditches deep into the marsh flats, hoping to eradicate the mosquitoes' breeding ground. However, they instead severely depleted the local population of killfish, a mosquito predator, ironically leading to a higher mosquito population and affecting the birds that fed on the killfish. These ditches can still be seen despite efforts to refill them and restore the salt marsh to its natural state. Each salt marsh is somewhat different in origin, character, and present condition, and these differences have to be carefully taken into account in any restoration efforts. What works in one marsh may spell disaster in another. A variety of conservation projects, ranging from the simple to complex, have been attempted in several places around the world with varying degrees of success. In many of these cases, there was little, if any, monitoring afterwards to see how successful the project was. This is slowly changing, with the growing realization that we can learn much from both our successes and failures. Nowadays, restoration projects are being better documented, and there is more careful ongoing study of the site after the initial restoration phase is complete. In 1970, the salt marsh harvest mouse was added to the endangered species list. The habitat of this tiny mouse is limited to the South San Francisco Bay in California. The salt marsh harvest mouse is able to eat food and drink water with quite a high salt content, a rare ability among land mammals. They spend most of their time hiding in the protection of dense marsh vegetation, especially pickleweed, and require this plant growth for shelter. The salt marshes where they live have 3 vegetation zones, and the mice require all 3 zones so they can seek shelter when the tide rises. They are endangered because of extensive habitat loss and degradation that no longer provides them with a place to retreat from the tides. Modification of their habitat includes infilling, covering or converting the upper vegetation zones to salt ponds, pumping groundwater, and discharging fresh water from sewage treatment plants into the bay, thereby decreasing the salinity and changing the plants that grow there. Predators like hawks, gulls, weasels, and other mammalian predators would also suffer from their food source being taken away. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service developed a recovery plan for the harvest mouse in 1984, but with under 2,000 remaining, their monetary efforts to protect are not as successful as they want them to be. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Endangered Species Program will help ensure that the pesticide does not jeopardize the survival of the mice, and local jurisdiction is still fighting for better protection.